believe that we have maybe 1 minute, but let's go ahead and introduce. This is Mike Clemente, who's from Leawood, and Jim Cook, who is from Clinton, Missouri, and they are awesome growers. This guy, especially, and Mike too. He won the show last year at Suburban Garden. So they're great growers, and we would love to hear how they get their tubers started. So I'm going to let you guys, it looks like you're ready, Mike.
Well, I can show first is how I set up for my grow lights. And Marjorie's going to put, there's a demonstration of this on the Johnson County Extension. And it's listed under, if you just type in grow lights, and they'll show this contraption. So what you do is you take Menards or any of the places, a 1-inch PVC pipe that's 10 feet in length. And then you cut it up in different pieces, and it will add up to be 10 feet. Now, so you buy, and at Menards or these places, the 10-foot, out in their shop, they have a saw that you can actually cut it yourself. And there's usually a work person around there that will cut it up. One little hint on that, after you cut them, at first I didn't do this to kind of shake them because we'll have fiberglass in here that you'll find later. So take the first cut, you get 4 foot, and you put on an elbow on each one. Jim to hold that for me. Now you have 2 foot. So we're up to 8 foot. This is what they call an elbow. And next, you take a T. And another T on this end. Then we've got 2 feet left. Cut this into 6 inches times 4. So that's our total of 10 feet. And I put a little end cap on, kind of protects them and lets it sit straight. And the other, so we've got 4 of these feet on it that are 6 inches. So that's 10 feet. As with everybody with the gardener, you start out small. All of a sudden I said, well, one of these isn't enough. I need to make more. So instead of the elbow, what I did is you buy a 3-way, and then cut up a foot, and then make the mirror image of this. So you've got another one of these that will tie into this one. That way I actually get 3 rows of plants underneath them. And one grow light. So this one would be 1 grow light, but if you want to have more, so here's another grow light, and actually I get 3 rows plants underneath them. So I can do three rows with that. And the grow lights, I got, Menards had them on sale last couple of weeks ago for $28. And it's the LED, but it's the true grow lights. It puts out the right angles for it. So that's what I do on that part. Just a couple little hints. The grow light comes with a chain, but the chain isn't near enough to wrap around here. So I just bought another cheap chain so I could put it around. The other thing, what you need to do, these are in boxes for $1 or so, buy some S's. So that'll lock into here, and then this will go down to the grow light. And the grow light will have an S hook that fits into it. So the grow light's going to sit right along here. And as a plant
to make it easy to change the height too.
Yes, and that's what I do. You just raise it up because, you know, by the time you're ready to plant them, you get them up pretty high. So, about 6 inches is what I've read on the grow lights. They like to be close, and then I raise them up. Do y'all have any other different readings on that? Because I've read several things, but
That's about what I do. I keep mine purposely a little bit further because I use the grow trays. And so one light is over the entire grow tray.
but it puts out the Arius light is kind of a purple, bluish type light. And if you have basement windows, the neighbors kind of like, what's going on?
It looks like a party.
So the hints were, when you cut it, shake it out so you don't get fiberglass. Buy a couple extra chains and some S-hooks.
Mats under your starts,
Do I have any heat
like
mats?
seedling heat mats?
No, but that's my plan to do that.
Okay.
My wife won't let me take the heating blanket from Maria, so I'm trying to figure out. Because when I looked up heating pads, they were ultra expensive for just like 2x2s. So.
They are.
They've got those cables. What I do in mine, because I've got 4x8. Well, I got two of them, one smaller than the other, but a 4x8. And just plywood with 10-inch sides or 12-inch sides on it. And they make those cords, heat cords, and it's just a heating element in the cord. You zigzag it back and forth, and then bury it in sand, and to act as a medium to spread the heat, and then set your trays on top of that. Is what I do, and then have to go with something. The heat.
You can actually put in the soil too. Is that what?
Well, I think you can.
Yeah.
I've never, put them in the soil, but
Yeah.
well, if you think you're behind, like you get your tubers out late for some reason, like, oh my gosh, am I gonna get it? Put a little heat under them and they'll really pop them.
The only thing you might consider those, they're putting it right in the soil, is they're gonna get root mass. The roots are gonna go in and get all over the chains, whatever you're putting down there. You may be ripping out roots as you're removing it.
Yeah.
I made it, as Marjorie's gonna put this contraption online, I made a couple copies of the 10-foot, how you cut it up.
Where were you putting it on?
I will send it to everyone after the meeting, okay? The same email list. If you're from Facebook, or any of you just signed up for Facebook, I will put it out there for you.
But they say you can take a handsaw and cut PVC. I've never found a hacksaw, even if you have a PVC cutter, that cuts this stuff very easy. But wherever you buy it, they have a shop saw that cuts it.
You got this, mind if I interject something? Sure. For you guys that are, I saw these last year at the National, and I've seen them online since then, but this is the first time I saw them. I thought it was just the greatest idea. They would take a container, like Coke, any kind of container, and they would build these plant holders. And what they would do, you'd have like an elbow, take part of this part around, and size it for the size. So you'd have like this, you just keep going and going and going, and then you up here however long you wanted them. And now these you would seal, and you tie it all together, just make a continuous loop, and you could fill this up with water, and then drop a stem in each hole. And I just thought that was the best idea, because then we had trouble with the blooms falling over or having to get them jammed in the bottle so they don't flop around. And so you can, yeah, so these would be for a medium-sized stem, and probably want one with some bigger for your double A's if you had some really big stems. I just thought, I haven't made one yet, but I intend to in the future, because it looked to me like they would really, you fill it up in one place, and that brings the water level up, so you don't have to worry about each individual one whether it's got water in it, because they're all tied together. So when the plant's drawing a lot of water, all going to use it together. I thought that's a really slick idea.
So that's what you're talking about doing that for sure.
For showing, yeah, for taking flowers to a show.
And you don't want to glue this, though. That was one thing. Tend to want to start.
Yeah, not for this, yeah.
so-
The other, you'd
so
have
you
to
can
glue it
dismantle
to keep it from leaking. But they made them fit a certain size.
You can make them as wide or as narrow as you want, depending on what kind of flowers, you know.
Absolutely.
You'd want them.
Absolutely, yeah. They would have,
Yeah, so.
for the little bitty ones, man, they just have one right after another. Just look like, you know, and then the double A's, they had space and wider. Then they had different size pipes
You
too.
can adapt to this to go bigger or
Oh,
smaller.
yeah, sure,
You know,
sure.
without any problem. It's just that, all those adapters, all those fittings that can be pricey, but that's.
So are you gonna discuss your pot sizes and the medium and
So I
stuff?
could do that, yeah. And then we'll take- So Marjorie asked me to talk about my soil mixture. I kind of do it a couple different ways. I start out with sphagnum moss. And last year I had a hard time finding this at the end of the year. I don't know how it is this year, but I would recommend buy it earlier than later, because who knows where this crazy markets are. So I buy sphagnum moss, and I'll put it in like a 5-gallon paint plastic thing, or if I'm going to do a lot of them, I'll do my 50-barrel, your old green trash cans. So I'll put sphagnum moss, and then I put about 20% of the perlite. So that's my first mixture that I get, and I wet it as I do it, because if you wait and put it all in there and then try to wet it, it doesn't really dissipate very well. I have used, and Bernie used to use, not perlite, but what's the other?
Vermiculite.
Vermiculite. I think it works real well, but I have a trouble. The vermiculite is so fine that the dust gets to me, as well as it seems to go everywhere. It grinds in the cement or the basement or wherever I am. So I quit using vermiculite, and I just use the perlite. And so I just mix it up and get it just enough dampness. Because I have a tendency, I think the drier things are, the better they are, because I tend to get rot. I think that's the nature of dahlias when you're growing them. So I really try not to get the mixture too wet. And I've got, this is frozen. It's an A.
You might describe, because a lot of people don't know A's and double A's.
Okay, so when we talk about sizes, the AA are dinner plates greater than 10 inches. This one would be 8 to 10 inches, generally the flower when frozen. And the name kind of tells you it's a white, even though it says it's a yellow. Mine have always been white, like frozen. So I don't know why they call it, why they say it's yellow. So my frozen has, so here's my mixture. You can see it's just slightly damp. And so these are really nice tubers. And I don't know if everybody can see. Is that good too? Then here are 2 of the eyes that are starting to grow. Can I just walk back there with the farm?
Yeah, you can do that, or just a
You can
little.
probably grow up there too. You just come up there.
So,
Oh, he's thinking about that.
Oh.
yeah. So if you can see, there's 2 eyes. And it's always the quandary, where do you cut to save it? Because there's probably going to be some more eyes come out of here. You can see there's an eye there, and an eye there.
You're gonna divide that.
Yes, because the quandary is where to cut. And you try to figure out, well, I think that tuber may be feeding that, or is this one? So the first time I'll cut it, I'll be real non-generous and make sure I have a whole lot of tubers to go with them. As I get more eyes, then you become, well, okay, I got 5 or 6 that come off of here, then take a little more danger in cutting so you can get more.
So right
Would you
now-
mind showing the camera like that and just show that the people can't see?
How long has that been in the soil?
Well, I store them in just straight sphagnum moss, not to grow, but just to store. And that is just very slightly wet. So when I went through these about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, it was starting to eye up, so I took it out and then I put it in my growing mixture.
Did you have it in a bag?
No, I put all, everybody does them different. I have a lot of pots and I'll put them in here and then I just put the names on them. So I'll have like 80 or 100 pots in the basement.
You're not in
With
Ziploc.
monster.
No,
Okay.
I just do the sphagnum moss. I'll check them probably 2 times through the winter. And it tends to dry out and then I'll take a little sprayer and just slightly this stuff. I'll also, about first part of February, I went through everything in the basement. I dumped out each pot and looked at them because I'll bet 1 out of 5, 1 out of 10 would have a rotten tuber on it. And if you leave that in there, it'll rot the whole thing. So I'll actually inspect each one of these through the winter and cut out any rotten tuber that's on there. It's kind of like the old saying, one rotten apple will spoil a whole bunch.
But they're in individual pots all winter long. Individual pots?
Yeah, like this.
Okay.
And what
Not
I'll,
the big box.
no, because I keep the labels on. And I do, these are actually marked. You can see it says frozen on it.
What is your basement temperature when you store?
It's a non-finished basement, but it's probably the coldest 45 to 55 to 55.
It's not heat. It's
No.
just a regular basement.
No, we've got long runs. We've got a colonial house and 2 heaters. So we've got long runs in there. So it stays, I mean, I can open it up and get it hotter, but it's about 45 degrees to 50, 55.
Is the floor cement
Uh-huh.
or do you store them on the floor or do you store them up?
I store them up, and what I take these in, I can get 8 of these, 4 and 4, and like the kids, what they take their books into school with, those plastic milk cartons. And so I'll have 8 of those, and the ones that are on the floor, I'll put newspapers underneath them. Because Bernie always said, don't put them next to cement floors because it takes the moisture out. So I'll put some newspapers underneath them to do that. But if I'm starting out in the fall, putting them in here for storage, if the tuber's too big, I'll half them, I'll quarter them to make a smaller bunch to go. Use a lot of pots that way, but
Do you let them dry out then before you put them?
yes, I've dug them, washed them off, let them dry for a day. And
I
then,
mean, you split them, then you let that.
no, once they're split, I just put them in the pots at that point. Do their thing.
Do you know what size pots those are?
I think they're 6-inch. Where I got these was at Planter Seed Company. They tend to have a very nice supply. This is the biggest one. I like the square ones because they'll fit in your trays easier. These big ones don't fit in quite as well. This size, I think, is 5 inches. And this one's taller, but it's the same width. So if I've got a tuber that's pretty tall, I'll use this one. If it's a smaller tuber, I'll do it with that. And then I always have, it's kind of amazing. This is a peaches and cream. This was just a little tiny one that grew off. And there's actually a little tuber right, a little eye right there. So those are the ones I get from the neighbors.
So when you check them, any of them that you see eyes sprouting, you go ahead and start potting them up.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'll go on and
And then like
at
the
that
other
time,
ones,
cut them out and get them growing individually.
then you leave the other ones just in the sphagnum moss until check them the
Right.
next week or
They'll
whatever.
be over in another stack. Okay, these are the ones that aren't eyed up yet. We'll put them separate over there and then check them
Do you put
periodically.
lights on those that you pot?
As soon as they will grow up and start to actually look like a stem,
As soon as they get a little green on them.
then I'll put them under the
Then
grow
you put
lights.
them in the box.
Because I don't think grow lights don't do any good at this other than just what you need is just heat. So on this one, I have 2 tools that I use to cut with. This is my good steel roast cutter that I love. They make a big one for a big hand. This one you know, all the dahlia shops show you this and you can cut with them. The only problem I have with this one is trying to get a big enough space between them so it's stabilized. Because I'm cutting through and it's like, oop, it goes all at once, I'm down to my fingers. So I'll probably use my rose cutters the most. And I just try to pick, okay, where's a safe cut to cut through here? It'll keep this eye in good shape with the tuber. And sometimes I'll have to make 2 cuts. So, and you'll tend to lose, not unusual to lose a tuber when you start cutting through here, something will fall off. So voila, there's, now I got 2 nice frozens, and I'll bet I'll probably get another 2 or 3 more out of this one.
So you only need one eye and you're good to go.
One eye makes 1 plant. Now, I do have one more example. Those are nice and separate. And this one I bring to the more experienced people to get a little advice on, to look at this one. This variety is called Peaches and N, the letter N and cream, because there's some other peaches and cream, like Peaches EN cream. And on this one, if you look, so when you look at this, can you see all these eyes here? Like there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Now over here, I've got another little baby eye starting here. But when I get something that's got like 5 or 6 eyes, I just cut down through the middle of it. And it's funny how some varieties will do that. Won't be nice and distinct.
You're
So
talking about this
can't
eye
get
right there.
that 5 or 6 cuts on that one. Yeah, see there. And over here, you see there's 1 nice eye. I'll probably just cut this one right through here. But sometimes when it's like this, I'll just let the plant grow and see which one's the most vigorous looking plant rather than cutting it right away. How would you do something like this?
Well, I do mine in the fall, right after I dig them. I dig them and wash them and so obviously, and I don't see that well anymore. So, I mean, I will just take each tuber that I can. I use just a really sharp paring knife or something like that. And I'll just go in and you've always got the tuber and then that little bit of a crown where it attaches to the stem. And I'll just try to take out a chunk of the stem with the tuber. And then I store it that way. And, that one would be awful small, but if you can get them out without breaking them, because you almost always, but, like on this one, I would actually start on this little one, because it's more likely to break. And I'd slip in and take off just a chunk of that, and then I'd go around to this little one, take out a hunk of that, and that leaves you with these 2 big ones, and I just split down the middle. And I'll get 90%, those next spring when I pull them out. I'll have 90% of them that will have a viable eye that'll come out and make a plant.
So you split yours more in the fall.
I do mine in the fall, but it's mostly for storage reasons.
Yeah.
There's just a lot less to store.
And I split a lot of these because, it would have had maybe 4 times this amount of tubers on some of them, and I'll quarter those. But also on something like this, if it's a variety it's an okay variety for me, then I won't worry that some of them aren't going to make it. But if it's a really nice variety and it's an expensive one to replace, then I won't take as many chances on it to do that. So, not if it's a real okay, this may be a questionable cut. I won't do that on a really good one. I'll just see what grows and then just, after it's grown up enough, pull off one of the plants and let all the energy go to the one stem.
So if you do leave more than one, you're not gonna have a very vigorous plant. If you leave two
My
eyes.
understanding is all you need is one tuber for one eye, and if you leave 3 or 4 tubers for that eye and pull off the eyes, then it doesn't make any difference.
I would agree with that.
But you only want one eye. If you
I
have
would-
three- If you have 3 eyes, you want to discard.
I would go so far as to say you want one plant growing all your flowers. This deal where you've got, because you've all seen later in the season, they'll keep pushing out little, those, they're just taking the energy away from the flowers. Just get rid of them. Get one good stalk and grow your plant. And, I mean, that's where I do the stopping,
Comes up from the-
yeah, taking the top out of after you got 3 or 4 leaf sets. You stop it, and so then the other branches, you don't want one stalk, you want more of a bush, but you want to get it off your laterals. One center stalk, and then when you top it, each leaf axil will put out and then you grow your flowers on that. It's really depending on the variety, and you just go by leaf axis, you got a stem, there's 2 leaves. And if you top that thing, there'll be a new stem come out of each leaf axil, okay? So if you're growing double A's and, you're trying to shoot for just some big blooms, you may only want 3 or 4 stems, okay? And so if you want 4, let's say, and I always give myself some extra, but you would have 2 pairs of leaves, and then you have this stem growing up here. Break out that stem, and then that'll stimulate, so you'll have 2 stems come off that, and then you grow a bloom on each one of those stems.
So when you say break out that stem, is it like pruning? So at a branch, so the branch goes like this, and branch here, you're gonna prune right at the junction of those branches?
No, we're just taking out the center stem.
Right, but you will prune the
Just-
stem out.
just-
In a low cut to.
Just above the leaf axil where you want stems.
Okay.
So now let's say it's a Holly Hill jitterbug, which is that's an M, I believe. Or is it a double B? Anyway, it's a smaller one. So a smaller bloom, instead of having just 4 blooms on that plant, you might want to shoot for 8 or 10. Okay, and so in that case, and this is where it gets back to, well, where do you prune them? It's how many blooms do you want on that plant? Okay, now, if you're just a casual grower and not sure, you may want to get a whole lot of little ones, but if you want a really nice show flower, and that's the beauty of growing a lot of plants, you can set some aside for show, and some you just get a lot of blooms for cutting. But for a show bloom, I always try to match the number of stems. In other words, each stem puts out 1 flower.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to, we're not ready to plant yet. Get back in season here.
Sure.
So I brought in, and this, I walk by Home Depot and they have these packages of dahlia blooms, dahlia tubers. And I asked Mike to discuss this and maybe cut these up. And if you look around, what they do, I think a lot of these come from overseas and they dig this by machine. So if you look and pass around the box that's in the back table, you can see there's a ton of broken necks.
Marjorie, real quick, Kim on Zoom just asked a question of whether we were describing pinching. And the answer is yes, that's the other name for what we're talking about. We take out the little center piece.
Well, that's even later when you get the,
Yeah, I was thinking,
when they
you don't
actually
have
bud.
any far enough to leave the
Right,
center where
yeah.
the center would be yet.
One thing, we always like to know what the name is. And if you can look on this, does that show up?
Just move it. Why don't you move right in front of there? Just do it.
And it says frozen on
Yes.
here. And different supply houses sell, and they're called a conductor's pencil. It's just a little different type of lead. And this will literally last for the whole year.
Whoa.
So you just kind of have to wet the pencil and it will stay there for the whole year on there. But also, I'll put my little plastic in each one of my containers, but I've been known to have the squirrels knock them over and it's like, what was that? So I'll usually mark on them also.
Where do you find that?
Swan Island carries them. They're not a good pencil though. The lead tends to break off, so it's not like your good old #2 pencils. So order a
It's
bunch.
good for marking.
Yes, but the lead in there breaks, when you're sharpening it, it breaks off very easy.
Is it a wider, is it a thicker?
No, it's
one?
just like a regular pencil,
Okay.
but I would order several of them because you go through them pretty easy.
Is it also that indelible?
Like a Sharpie, the Sharpies tend to fade.
No, she's talking about an indelible,
I think that's the name
indelible
of it.
pencil,
I
and
think
it's
that's the name of
purple,
it.
but it's kind of soft. And
You're right.
you let it,
You're right.
it's wet, and it'll do the same thing.
Right, that's what this is. It's got several names for it,
Right.
but conductor pencil with.
I wanted to back up there just a little bit, kind of backtrack just a little bit. When you were separating those tubers, there's a crown at the top of every tuber that hooks onto the original stem. There's like a circle, it's like a crown. At the
Right,
top
right
of that- Yeah, right there. We want to have a part of that, or you gotta have, not one, that one of them matter. You've gotta have a piece of that crown on every tuber. Because right out of that crown, between the crown and the tuber, is where that eye is gonna come up, if it's not there yet. And hopefully, you, like on that one there, we had two eyes already up. He's gonna cut it in two. Hopefully, there's gonna be 3 or 4 more come up. But those are gonna come up right around that crown, right where it goes on the tuber. And you've gotta have a piece of that crown on there, or you're not gonna get anything. We'll sit there until spring.
Thank you.
Right. 3 parts have to be there, body, the neck, and the crown, for it to be a viable tube.
But the neck is sometimes very short.
And sometimes, and if the neck is all of a sudden, if your tuber of the bunch is wobbling, that means the neck's broken and it's just.
Yes, and there's tons of broken necks, yeah,
Yeah.
so those will never grow. Is that
All things
true?
have to be there, all 3 have to be there for the tuber to be
And
viable.
no breaks.
Back on this one that was bought in quantity, you see these? There's the neck, and that's a broken neck. And
Yeah.
at first I was like, when I first grew it, I was like, oh, I'm gonna give it a chance. You hate to do it. That's dead. It'll rot right there.
Yeah.
So when you start going into these, if you've got a weak or broken neck, you just get rid of them. Because it's gonna rot. That's bad. That's weak. See all those? They're, just get rid of them.
Are you gonna get one?
Pardon?
Are you gonna get one?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because see all the rest of these are good. And like Marjorie was saying, usually when you get these clumps like this, or when you buy from like Rex or some of the importer ones, because they grow them in Holland and gigantic fields and they just come along and pick these up. They don't tend to have a nice tuber like this on. But it'll be a nice plant. Right here is a eye that's coming up. So on this one, I would probably just put it in the pot right now and see what else grows.
I'll show them.
I would suggest that, and I don't know, but I
Take it over there.
feel confident
They
that,
need to see.
you know, these are special grown to get a bulb to sell. And you notice how when you buy these, how small the stems are? In other words, this plant didn't grow real big. I mean, look at, you know, that's about the size of a pencil, just a little bit bigger. And the tubers are real small, because I mean, just think of the shipping cost of a great big tuber, a big clump of tubers versus this. And also, you know, on here, it doesn't say anything about dividing or cutting or anything. It just tells you how to plant it. So they expect you to plant this whole thing. Not that you won't, and not that you won't and will, almost certainly will get more than one plant out of it, because it's got multiple tubers, and several of these will put out will lie up and put out a plant.
But again, by the same token, you know, the grower, he says that there's 3 tubers in this bag. And there's 3 clumps of tubers in there.
Right.
And we look at it and say, oh boy, there's 30 of them here. Well, they're not guaranteeing you 30.
Yeah.
You may get 30, but you
Maybe
actually
what
don't
you
want
want.
3 or 3 in the package.
Okay, so we've got Jim next on the,
Okay,
set up. So if you would move, Mike, I think we got it pretty well set that Jim's stuff that he shows where you're at, that people will be able to see too.
Or can you remove the messages on it?
Yeah.
The big lot of the screen.
Well, I used to do it exactly like Mike, and I would probably be doing that same way, except for 2 reasons. Number one is quantity. And that's not the quantity of flowers, but on the storage side. I do grow a lot of dahlias, so, and I like to support the club I have. I've got the tubers, so let's cut them up. So I will have a, big clump. And my tubers tend to run large. Because I do push them hard when I'm growing them, fertilizing them, watering. But so in the fall, dig them, wash them down, usually let them set overnight to dry out, and then I'll try to cut them the next day. And then I use the saran wrap, which I read about on the ADS site, where you take each individual tuber and, just get a big long, however many tubers you got, get a big long piece of plastic paper or plastic wrap, and you roll one, add one, roll it over, add one, roll it over. So you end up with this big conglomeration of tubers. The nice thing about that for storage is if you do get a rotten one, it is separated from the others. So I'm really impressed by the look of Ron's tubers. Mine don't look that good. I have a lot of trouble with mold. And after I cut them, before I wrap them, I actually dipped mine. 2 years ago, I just used the bleach solution, took standard old Clorox bleach and maybe 10, 15%, and throw them in there. They might sit in there 3 minutes, not even that much. I mean, while I dump them in there, and then I do something else, and then I can roll them up. And but they do need to set a little bit, because you don't want to put them in the wrap wet. That worked good. This last year, I still had a little trouble, so I went to Daconil, which is a fungicide, same water solution, dipped them, rolled them. I still had fungus. In fact, almost every tuber I had when I rolled them up here on the cut portion, they almost, literally, almost every one of them was fuzzy with mold. And I thought, oh my gosh, I had this last year, but not bad. And I dipped them again. Only this time in a Clorox solution.
You might tell them that you refrigerate yours.
Oh, yeah. And that was another thing. My basement is heated, although it's a lot cooler than the rest of the house. And I had terrible trouble with mold back then. And I wonder and last year I was very careful, and I dipped all my flats and trays in a Clorox solution because I was having so much trouble with mold. And yet this year I had it worse in the sense that almost every tuber had that little bit of mold on it. And
Kind of a whitey bluey color.
yeah,
Yeah,
just a
up
white
on the
fuzz,
neck.
little white fuzz. But it's not down on the necks or anything else. It's just, it was right on that face.
No,
Will that ruin your plant, field plant?
Well, these are them. These are the ones I'm talking about. Now, does that have something to do with the problem? Something later? I haven't had any problems.
That plastic wrap, would you store it then in the refrigerator?
Yes. I did
See,
get
that's why
a,
my wife won't let me take over the refrigerator.
yeah. I went to an auction and bought an old bottle cooler at a restaurant for $100, and it worked. So, but that's what go ahead.
I'm sorry, when did you put them in the fridge?
In the fall.
So, yeah,
I dig them, cut them, wrap them, and put them in the fridge.
I would have thought that would have actually moisture. Keep moisture in the fridge.
Well,
In that plastic wrap.
they're in the plastic wrap, but also, a refrigerator, pulls moisture out. It's got a drip tray in it. This cooler, just like a refrigerator does.
When you do the wrap, you would actually kind of seal it
And
off.
seal it, yeah. Yeah. And I had the same concerns, and you take them out like in January, you pull them out, and you can see the condensation inside there, and you go, oh my God. But again, I did say, I had, as I unrolled them, I dropped them in a dish of, light milk bleach, and then potted them.
You've had many fewer that are mushy though, since you would use the refrigerator, right?
I'm just saying,
When you unwrap them in January, you've had many fewer that are mushy
oh, yeah,
than in the old days when you
yeah.
were trying to store them open.
When he said he had a basement at 45, 55, see, that's what I stored them in my refrigerator. And I always thought that was my trouble, that basement was just too warm, because I lost the turbine.
I did the Ron Stauffer, he's my guru. And we put like, I put in the plastic Ziploc. And I went to check on January. Charging but in any event, they started sprouting.
Mhm.
And the bags were open. I left the bags kind of open. One of which was more closed than open, and that stem found its way.
Oh, yeah.
out. So now I have some that are kind of, won't stand alone. Stauffer will stand. Is there anything I can do about that?
Cut them back.
Yeah.
Just cut them back.
Cut 'em back
And I'll show you on these one, because these are obviously too big for this time of year.
so they'll grow if I cut them back?
Right?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Because that's like a water,
What-
that's like a water strike. So just
I'll-
cut it all, went back down.
Look like little albino
Yeah.
asparagus.
Yeah. I'll show you when, this one's big enough, I can show you like the topping thing too, but anyway, and let me say this, that's what I did this year, because we're in between houses, and normally I take cuttings. In other words, I will start my tubers really early, like in January, February, so that I get plants like this in early March, and then just an X-Acto knife, or a surgeon's scalpel or something like that. These are called the Oasis plugs, and they just break apart. This is easy. Soak them. It's designed just for this, so it holds the right amount of moisture against your stem. But then you would come in here and you get down below, these are the leaf axles I was talking about. You understood that, right? This is one axle, so 2 leaves. And when I take a cutting, I want a strong center, and these leaves are really too big. When I cut this, I would come down here and cut just below these 2 leaves here, just below, and then I would break these 2 leaves off. And because these are so large, I'd probably just cut, because damping off is the biggest trouble, which means they just run out of moisture. And then cut it off, and you can use rooting hormone. Some people say it works, and some say it doesn't make any difference. And then just stick it in there. And after that, just keep it warm. The biggest trouble and the thing that I finally, because I've been fighting this for several years and not having good luck. I got along pretty darn good last year, but I found you've got to really keep them misted, not wet, but misted. And get up in the morning, just have a spray bottle, just water, mist them at lunch, mist it, come home at night, mist them again. And you've got to do that for about 2 weeks, 18 days, and then they'll read out and you can pot them off.
Do you put a dome over yours, or do you do that?
I don't. I'll take that back. Yeah, I do. I've got one of my boxes where I've got a sheet of plastic I roll out over, but it's still pretty high over.
But you're talking, Jim, about cuttings, not.
Yeah, these are cuttings, and maybe I shouldn't even got into that.
Because the other ones are really susceptible for rot, just growing a regular tuber with the stem, not with cutting.
They-
More moisture, they'll rot.
Yes, yeah. If you, this is pretty dry, and I just watered these just a little bit because they're really dry. If you want a dry medium, like you were talking about. But, small tuber, I put in a small pot, and a big tuber, I put in a big one. I bring quite a few to the sale. you don't have to do this at all in a separate pot. I do it so I don't have to do it later when I'm ready to sell it. You know, now they're ready to sell. And, if I wasn't selling them, I probably wouldn't put them all in separate pots. Just line them up and get that little plant out.
What's the advantage of doing cuttings? What do you do with the plant?
Okay, the initial plant would go away. It's called the mother plant, and I have disease problems. Probably something I do. I try to dip, anytime I'm pruning, I'll have my bottle of Clorox water and dip my, my between plants so I don't get, I don't know, I just have a lot of disease problems. But they say, I talk about, I've had mold issues. By taking a cutting, you're leaving all that behind. See, you're starting with a fresh plant. Now, is that true or not? But that's what I've read. And then it gets rid of the tuber. You're planting. Yeah, stick it in here, soak these up, you stick it in, and you might have to add water, but probably not if it's not.
Just a cutting a leaf, like a cactus?
I'll show you after, yeah. But yes,
Like you say, move passes. You say move.
I'm in the process. I'll be,
So is that because of mold that your wife?
well, that might be.
We have dahlia crap everywhere.
You may have to spray it before you come back in.
Yeah. But,
Doesn't each one you're using cuttings get like 10 or 15, you can take cuttings off of them?
or
It looks like
20
you've
or
got
40 or, and if you've got,
There's more eyes.
if you've got one of those new varieties and you can sell for $25 or $35 a piece, you can take a clump and some people will even start, practically as soon as they dig it. And they'll start taking cuttings right then, grow a mother plant. In other words, they'll have a plant this tall, and talking about those leaf axils, they'll start cutting those to propagate. So they might have one mother and they can pull 100 plants off of it by spring next year. So it's big. If you've got one of those varieties that's hard to find, or you just want a lot of one variety and you don't have enough tubers, you can just keep expanding the numbers.
When you're doing cuttings, you usually leave a tip out of the soil with it, but when you're just kind of getting them started ahead of time, do you do it that way too?
These are just these are tubers.
Yeah,
And-
but what you're gonna.
Now
you're
these I
gonna
will just
not take cuttings off some of them and then just plant them in the ground later, or you take the cuttings off?
Okay. This is too far along. This will be way too big. Okay, but you notice I've got 3 plants coming off one. So Holly Hill Jitterbug, I'm gonna look at the quantity I've got. If I want some more, I'll go ahead and take some cuttings and try and save them. If not, I'm gonna cut this big guy out, and probably this one here too, because that's about the size I want for this time of year. In other words, this will be my plant. But if you look in there, this is all one tuber, and I can see another little green spot there, another little green spot there, and another little one right there. So yeah, sure. That'll also show you about not being too worried about seeing that eye. If you get that crown, and I can show you after, got this thin neck, and this is the crown. If you look closely, there's a piece of an old stem there. And this one's got one coming out. I'm sure that's going to be another one. I'm pretty sure that's going to be another one. There's definitely one there. So there's 4 potential plants off one little bitty tuber with a little bit of it. So don't, or if you've got a tuber and it's spread like this and you broke it off, don't be afraid to plant. I almost bet you there's going to be another one coming in.
Could you point those, because I'm an eye challenge person, I can't see it, so would you mind pointing them out to the camera? And then these guys will be able to see them on the screen too. You can watch the screen.
Now you can actually see the green.
Need to go up a little bit.
I don't know if
There
I
you
can-
go.
Okay, there you can actually see the green on that one there. There's another one right there. I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure one will come out right there. And well, those are the ones I'm sure about. But so yeah, sure. Okay, this year I won't. Just, the time thing, I'm not doing my cuttings this year. Although I have that option. If I get home and I find out, I don't have enough jitterbug, I'll cut those and sell plants, or have plants. See, most of what I brought to the sale last year were plants. They weren't tubers at all. They were almost all plants. And,
But by next fall, they will have two.
oh yeah, these all came out of those plants. I mean, out of great big tubers.
When's the sale and when you plant?
As soon as the ground's good and warm, but, definitely after the 15th of April, I wouldn't dare take a chance. 1st of May is an awful good time.
And Ron's gonna talk about the sale, right? Right.
Yeah, we'll put some dates out there.
And keep in mind, you can plant, if you've got, even June,
Can you just plant the tubers and not call out?
absolutely.
Okay. What do you have to do to keep them alive?
Just keep a little water on them. Yeah, if they're still tied to a tuber, now, if they're still a tuber. Now, once you get like this is gonna start taking more water, just
Yeah.
because it's got a leaf that's gonna.
What we're talking about just gives you a jump on it.
And the other thing is, what you're planting. I mean, if you got a tube there that you hope it's gonna sprout an eye, and you put it in the ground and 2 weeks later, there's nothing there. Well, now it's, now you've got a plant. That's another thing about getting them started a little earlier.
Varieties, blue, or they all bloom at certain times of summer.
Some are earlier than others, but once they start blooming, they'll never stop. They'll keep going.
Last year, they seemed to be moving towards the end of the, when I had here,
Last year was just horrible.
No, I don't know.
It's too wet first, and it got dry, and it got wet again.
Yeah, it was horrible. I lost tons of plants. I had some holes I planted 3 times with plants, and they just,
I lost more to rot last year than I ever lost.
I don't know what it was. But, and I think it was a root rot, because when I went to digging, some of my tubers were just not good at all.
So, and keep in mind also that, once you put them in the ground, you can't control the water quite as much as you can in the pot. So that's why I like to get them in the pot, get them up there, about like he's got right there. That's why I like to put them in the ground. That way you got some feeder roots taking off. And if you get a 4-inch rain, you got a better chance of them not rotting.
And you'll get flowers earlier.
Right.
Because, if you read that deal, it's going to tell you to put this, it's going to tell you to take this and put it on the side, put it on the side, and then, plant it, 3 or 4 inches of soil around, 2 or 3 inches of soil on top of it. Well, it's going to take a couple weeks to get out of the ground. And that's where you get into, if you get it really wet, it can rot. Whereas if you've got something green sticking up.
What about container planting? Will they go in containers or you set differently?
I've never done it, but I would say it's great. Who's the guy in Sedalia?
I bet,
There's a guy in Sedalia that all he grows is the A's and double A's. He never shows, but he always comes to the fair. And he showed me pictures. He grows like 50 or 60 plants, and they're all in those big pots set up on. It's quite a
I
deal.
raised 2 floodlights last year in pots, and I've never done pots before because I was always hesitant on them, I just didn't like them. So I put them in a big pot about this big, and then I put that pot inside another pot and filled a straw around the inside pot between the two to give it some protection from the weather. And I got good flowers out there, they done real well.
So you got the one in then?
I got. And I could have, I could have very.
7 feet tall, like some of mine.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Like I couldn't.
Well, I used to help with floodlight because it's relatively, 3 to 4 feet is about all it usually does. And it was all the top one. But it worked, so I'll probably plan again this year. in that
So-
time.
more questions for Jim?
Do you find that, some of the tubers take longer for the ice to sprout? Like I heard that about
Absolutely.
like cafe au lait, like it's really
Yeah,
slow.
I think I probably, I might have, an Alton cherry would be one of his biggest ones because they always, when they did last year, I grew up for the first time last year and they're first to come up. I quit taking cuttings and that thing got that big in my basement, And there's others, and then some are notoriously slow. You're about to give up on them, and then all of a sudden, here they go.
I have about 400 of them in trays right now, getting ready to try to eye out. And there's like 30 varieties. One variety, I put them in a week ago. One variety, the entire tray of that variety is up and eyed out and even starting to grow, whereas none of the others
Yeah,
haven't even started.
so that's,
And some of mine hide up in the plastic wrap.
oh, yeah.
That can happen.
Yeah.
I
Sure.
was like, oh, yeah.
I took some of your plants last year and put them in like gallon containers. Let them grow, some of them I sell it. Some of them I put. Some didn't. But I waited long enough so they were really developed
Right.
plants. Disadvantage to that, it seemed to work. But I didn't let the roots go so far as to, you have to be careful because they're kind of delicate plant that size, but always done that.
Just me personally, I would like to get to the point where I'm planting all my plants, like when I'm taking cuttings, when I get set up in my new house, and plant a 5-inch pot instead of these smaller ones. And so planting a bigger plant. In fact, having, maybe even on some varieties, having your first stop as you're planting them before you're planting. No, just plant a bigger plant, but then maybe plant it later. And, so no, I don't think so, but
Question may not be related, but I had a beautiful Parkland tribute beds and it was gorgeous. Animal broke it, or something broke the stem off. And then within 3 or 4 weeks, another growth came out.
Oh, yeah.
Great. But it never made it. For whatever reason, it just didn't make it. So that is conceivable that can happen.
oh, absolutely,
Okay, so-
absolutely.
Okay, so.
Yeah, I've
the
seen
alarm that it was broke, but maybe in that break area, look like you got another.
And you got any dog?
No, not yet. No, there wasn't a dog.
One thing that took me a long time to learn is you grow a bloom on a stem. If you think about it, well, unless you leave when it buds out and leave all 3 of them at the top. But that stem is going to produce one bloom. Now, if you take the tip out, or that one matures and you cut it, then those side ones will produce another stem that will then bloom. And I think we get that stalk in the middle, and it's only going to produce that one flower at the top until it puts out more stems.
It's hard to cut those stems, though, you know, I mean, it's hard.
It is, but I tell you what, to growing really good dahlias, just be merciless on it. Just cut the dickens out of it.
But then I
There
could
is-
disappoint all the neighbor ladies.
Yeah.
Well, now you'll get more flowers.
Yeah.
You will. Because remember, every time you cut one, the one back, so just below it's going to put out 2 more.
Mary Kingsley says, will I have to do any of this with the tubers that I buy at the sale? I say, you
Well,
can put
there's-
them in pots if you want.
There's several growers bringing. Mine will be in pots. Some people will be in plastic bags. And you can go directly into the ground. Although, what date's our sale? April?
Roughly end of April, 29th.
Yeah, I would pot them up just to just because I wouldn't want them in the ground that early,
Yeah.
personally.
I shoot for May 15.
But you don't have to put them in a pot. You can just, put some potting soil in a tray and throw them in there, and, and they'll lie up, and it's actually a good idea. Again, you know what you're planting. You got a little bit of green sticking up.
And we say potting soil, it's not like potting mix that deep.
I think at that point, I think it's important at this point to get the perlite in there for drainage. But later in the year like that, things are really going, and I think we'll be all right. Yeah, I think we get a little carried away sometimes on that stuff personally.
Yeah, but also, depending on if it's too wet, I've kept these to June, July, because I repot them and put them in bigger pots, and I go back to more just normal topsoil.
But the storage and over the winter, that drainage is really key, and early. They need to drain.
By the way, tell Mary that I think she's paid her dues.
Okay.
I think one thing that I've learned, everything is different for you. So you just adjust to what you think works best. I mean, the sunlight's a little different here, a little wetter here. So there's multiple answers for every one of these questions. You just kind of get a feel for it. And nature's going to win along the balance. That's why you start out with a whole bunch of them.
And I would really, really recommend bring some flowers to the show, even if you think it's the most god-awful ugly thing in the world, because you pick that just that morning and you know what you don't like, and you may bring it to the show. And if you ask your question then, it's right there in front of you. Well, we think this happened, or this happened. Or this is how you might improve this fall. You have this fall probably because of this. And I would really encourage you to just bring a few blooms. And it's just one.
If you do have questions or, while you're before the show, you can always send a picture to greaterkcdahlia.com, which is on the website, and I will disperse it out to the person that I think is the most knowledgeable. And one of these guys, or me if I know, will get back to you. So that's another way. And pictures are the best. Get the whole plant, get the part that's the problem, and let us know if you have questions during the growing season. So,
real quick story from last year. I can't know Rome City, right? Ron brings in these flowers, and I was still getting mine set up for the show last year. He's got all these nice big blooms, and he said, "What do you think of this and that?" And there's this Rome Obsidian sitting there, and I saw that thing, and man, there's your flower. And remember, I reset it in the vase for you in one.
Yeah.
So, and you learn that by I learned it from Bernie, Larry, as showing. You see them side by
We're in
side.
competition, but we're not in competition. The joy is just showing.
And if you haven't been to the show, go.
Yeah, go.
200 blooms there, just gorgeous, just jaw dropping.
yeah, you'll find some you'll fall in love with.
And then you see things in the show that you don't understand, why this thing has got a bloom that's looking down at the floor. Why did it do that? And so then we get some others that's the same variety. We compare them and say, well, I don't know, let's look at it. And we actually can find a reason why it's doing this. Sometimes maybe, sometimes not. We got a leaf that's kind of half yellow. We can't understand why it's half yellow. Well, you turn it over on the bottom side and find some spider mites. Just some of those little things that we learn. Sometimes our best bloom, but maybe not in the show. And, the show didn't cost, it's just a matter of time. It's a good time to learn.
And if it's your bloom, you remember.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the sale a little bit. And I know the people online wanted to hear about the sale and from you. And rather than start the business meeting, which Ron would be talking about the sale, let's just talk about the sale now, Ron.
Sure.
You want to come up so the people can see you?
Sure. Here he comes.
Here's one. Just sit right there. There's a camera.
sell.
Okay.
Okay, first of all, I'm Ron Stauffer. I'm the treasurer and in charge of the sale. And I want to talk about what an unbelievable bark our tubers are. Here is Swan Island. They're probably the premier dahlia seller, grower, whatever, out of Oregon. And they have one in here that's new to them for this year called AC Bend. And AC Bend is a great flower, great plant, won the largest in show the last 2 years, I think. But it's new to them, and they're getting $20 a tube.
What page you on?
It's on page 13 of this year's version,
AC Ben?
AC Bend. So they're getting $20 a piece. Right now in my basement, I have 37 of them. Jim's got another 10 or 15 probably to add to it. I mean, if we were selling them for $20 a piece, we'd have $1,000 just in AC Bend. Anyway, we get $5. So, I mean, and there'll be, all of them will be viable, all of them will have eyes, all of them will have some growth. They're real legitimate. In fact, you'll be able to look at them as you're picking them up and go, yeah, this is a viable plant, versus having them shipped in from Oregon. But I mean, again, Swan Island is really good at what they do, and they're maybe worth it, but ours is a bargain. Now, here's where we are. Time-wise, I may need some stuff back over here. I'm gonna throw some dates out there, and well, as I'm looking for that,
I thought on my
we have two different dates. We keep talking about when do we want, when should we put them in the ground? We, the people that are growing for the sale, have to be prepared for the sale and be able to deliver them at the end of April. So we're probably starting a little earlier than you would in your home garden, because you're probably, I shoot for May 15. You probably want to start your tubers 1st of April, something like that, 5, 6, 7 weeks ahead of when you really want to put them in the ground. I started mine again, keeping the sale in mind. I started mine about a week ago. And, you know, like I said, one variety is already up and growing, but by April, by the end of April, when they're doing the pickup for the sale, they should all be viable.
You said started.
Started meaning I pulled them out of the winter storage. I have them, I told you to bring the plastic. I do mine in Walmart bags. I do like Jim does. I cut them down to individual tubers in the fall after I dig them up. I then fill a Walmart plastic bag with some peat moss, put all the tubers inside the peat moss so they're completely covered and whatever, and then I store them in my basement that is not heated, and it gets to about 50 degrees, and store them there all winter. Again, about a week ago, I pulled them out of that, and I lay them in, you know, the black grow trays where you store all these. Anyway, I just lay them flat in there with a little bit of peat moss, a combination of peat moss and growing medium.
So not covered, just some.
No, just enough to keep. And by the way, it's not dry, but I mean, you couldn't clump this together in your hand. I want a little bit of moisture in there just so they don't dry out while they're sitting in the peat moss. But usually 5, 6 weeks, and they will be looking like, I don't know where his plants just went, but they'll be somewhat the small size, yeah, somewhat that size, and they'll be ready to go. Now, as far as the sale, here's some dates that I'm going to throw out there. Because the first of these are for the growers. We'll try to get some inventories from the growers starting next week, so we know what varieties you think you're going to have, and then I want you to be really low on what you think you're going to be able to bring. We did this for the first time last year, where Marjorie did a great job of setting up an online catalog, an online sales tool for our tubers. And we were pretty good at it, but we had some disappointments in that you never really know in some of these if you're going to be able to, even though you put 10 plants in spring trying to get eyed out, you could have all 10 of them brought out. And you may have reported 5 of them you're going to bring to the sale, and all of a sudden you're bringing nothing. Those 5 were ordered by someone, they're going to be disappointed. So I'm trying to be very conservative on our first date Just tell me what version, what varieties you have, and if there's 10 of them there, tell me you're gonna have 3. Tell me you're gonna have 2 for that variety. And we're gonna try to do that again next week. And then we will open up the order line on March 26th. So we're about March 28th, pardon me.
No, 26, okay, here, I have it in front of me.
Okay,
Okay, Tuesday, the 22nd, the growers are to have the conservative number of tubers they want to donate. On Saturday, the 26th, members first, and I will send out,
Are you saying April or March? Or that's next week?
oh, April.
yeah, next week we want to hit the inventory for people.
Well, wait a minute. We were starting, I think, what we're going to do is we're going to have 2 dates, right? I
Right.
mean, so we are going to have the members allowed to start ordering on Saturday, March 26th. And I will send a email with the password because you'll need, the website will be password protected.
This is where your $5 comes in, so it's actually worth it because you're gonna have first shot at any of the tubers that are out there.
Okay, and then on Monday, March 28th, and make sure we agree here, Ron. It's the live date for the public to start ordering.
We'll have about a 30-day window where you can order tubers.
So only 2 days for members.
Yes.
We've got 2 days ahead of everybody else.
2 days ahead of the public. Okay, so then, and Ron, you can explain this.
Well,
In
then,
mid-April, we're going to start letting the growers get their tubers eyed out. So,
by mid-April, the growers should know, yes, here's how many viable I really have by variety. So we're gonna put a secondary inventory into the system. We will notify the members again that, hey, we're getting ready to do this, come get them, first come, first serve, but we're not gonna announce it to the world, we're gonna announce it to the members, and then the world a couple days later.
April, what was that date?
the second go around on Thursday, April 14th,
14th.
we are going to email a list of the additional tubers that the growers came out with. So you'll have the email on the 14th.
The tubers that's available at that point, we would order those through the website.
Yes, it's all going to be through the website.
So that same website, though, it's already open to the public.
Okay, there's going to be 2 inventories.
It's true, but and the public, if by happenstance on the second go around, the second inventory,
Okay.
if by happenstance they go in and order, fine.
Yeah.
But we're gonna tell the members that
We
it's
can't
coming.
lock the store once it's open.
Right, well, I understand, that's why I'm saying, if you're adding the inventory to the sale.
Right.
So
Yes.
will the members have,
No, they will get an email of what is going to be added.
what's gonna happen now?
And then if some public person on that morning of April 15th wants to order, they can order.
Because by the middle of April, we should have, the growers should have a very good count of what's viable.
Yeah,
And that way we'll know our numbers and we won't be selling stuff that we don't have.
okay, and
When
another,
can we first view the inventory to order
to
off
the
the website?
first view for
Well,
them,
you-
first chance to order is March 26th.
I mean, you
So I
can
can
actually
go on
go
the
in there,
website And
March 26th, you can order.
then I can start looking for what I want.
You can look
In
now.
fact, buy it early, buy it right away. If you see something you absolutely want, buy it.
Can I look now?
If you can see what we had last year.
Actually, yeah.
There won't be inventory associated to it, there'll be pictures and whatever in there right now.
Yeah, because I remember when I went to buy last year, I didn't get everything
Sure.
I wanted because obviously.
Well, and we disappointed people last year. We did okay last year. I think we can improve it. And
Yeah, and another thing we're doing is there will be a wait list. So if a person, you or the public, we run out and it's 0 inventory, then there will be a text box where you can enter your email. And if we get more, we'll notify you. We can't guarantee we're going to get more, but at least if we do, you will be notified April 15th or 14th that we had some more.
And when we go to pick them up, I assume we can buy some more.
there probably will be some there, yes.
Or sale.
Yeah.
Some for sale.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm gonna, maybe not.
But,
I mean, they could all be ordered.
Yeah. Order to be safe.
Yeah, if you see something you want, go buy it. And by the way, here's the only thing that's kind of bad about it, is you're gonna have 2 different order opportunities, 2 different times to look at the inventory. you're likely to have two different orders, but I mean, we'll merge all that when you come pick them up. And that's the other important date here. Friday, April 29th is going to the pickup date, 1 to 4 p.m. By the way, all this is going to be sent out to you on message, but you guys are getting the
And it'll
sneak.
be on the sale, it'll be on the front of the online catalog.
We already had it in place.
It is. That's our, and as a fallback position in case, in case it's snowing or raining, Marjorie is kind enough to offer her garage, which is only a couple blocks away from there.
So the 26th and 27th, there will be like a password protected.
Yes.
Only for members to get in and order. And then
Correct.
On the 28th, it'll just go.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes. And we really can't always guarantee that, that something would happen to a grower, something would happen to the little bag in the tuber. So we don't want to make a total promise, but we hope we do order.
We're trying our best to make sure that whatever you order, you actually get, that we actually have.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, this is other clubs only fun.
but Mother Nature has her own agenda on these things too. Sometimes we
Another
just
thing
don't
I
know.
might say too, for some of the people, we make extra strides that we don't give anyone a tuber that doesn't have an eye.
Right.
We want to make sure that that happens. We do that, I think we do that 100%. And sometimes you have these that get to those thinking eye that comes up there and it might get bumped off in the process. But usually on those, they'll have another one come right behind it. So we really work hard to make sure that we give you a good tuber. Not like
Even the pros are not perfect. I mean, I think every year I've ordered, I usually try to add half a dozen different varieties every year, to try to change out something. And I'll bet, and this year I have 6 on order, I'll bet 5 of them are good and 1 of them is not good, even though I paid $10 for it. So yeah, we're gonna try our best to give product. Yes.
We're doing the same thing we did, like, if you remember, you get one. How was it?
That's for a free, that's the first year member.
Not anymore. Oh, for first year.
Yeah,
First
for
year member.
joining, for initial
Otherwise,
joining.
$5.
And after we have your $5, we don't care anymore.
Okay.
just look through that Swan Island book or get on the internet and check the prices. I might be glad to give that $5.
Now, I do have a deal for you. If you volunteer for the society, the first time you volunteer, you get a t-shirt. One of our t-shirts, so that's.
And you traded in for a gallon?
No, but, that's an opportunity. Okay, fine.
Sure. I'm not sure what more I have. Next meeting, we're gonna probably do some more things on how to bring your tubers again for the growers. How to get them sale ready and how to label them up.
Yeah, we'll also talk about planting your tubers.
If, like, I have extra tubers, is that what you're talking about? Like to donate to the sale or?
Yeah, we'd be happy to have them. Sometimes it's adding 1 or 2 new names in there. That means Marjorie has to go find that tuber and sometimes it's not worth it.
But bring them to the sale. I mean, we will have the public, like you guys might want to pick up some that are there in boxes that we didn't have on the catalog, but you're welcome to bring them.
Yes.
Marlene does that frequently.
You really won't
Bring
know
some beautiful ones.
You still sell.
until March
Yeah.
26th. What-
They wouldn't be on the
what's gonna
catalog.
be the same. Is that a fair statement?
No, yeah, that's a pretty fair statement. Although you can look at last year's and realize that almost all those, if not all of those, will be in the sale again this year.
Okay, but the real thing is going to be on, we're going to know for sure it's March 26th.
Yes, by then we'll have the ones that we think are going to be there. And by the way, where you really know what you're getting is when we do the re-inventory in middle of April, because then they're right out and then the growers know absolutely what they're going to be able to bring.
That's what you add to your list if you want.
That's what I do, because some of the stuff that's on the website even now, we may not have enough confidence in it that we put in inventory, a number associated to it for the first go around. By the second time, we'll know, yes, there's 10 of them viable that we're selling.
And if you see it and you're interested and there's none there, put your email in the text box and you'll get an email back if it does show up.
Yes,
Sounds like it's put together really well.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
It sounds like what you're doing is put together really well.
That's what we're trying to, we didn't really appreciate what some of the stuff that happened last year. Some people walked away disappointed. So we certainly don't intend to do that. But you know,
It was our first go around.
but here's the difference. We used to bring a lot of tubers in and we'd have maybe sell 150. We sold 500. So the website achieved a lot. Well, we sold 500 mainly because Jim adds to our inventory so dramatically. Then we had that many available. But I mean, if we sell 300 or 400 this year, everybody will be happy.
Yes. And dahlias are hot, so I really encourage you, if there's something you really want, get it right away.
Well, they're selling out a lot.
Oh,
Yeah.
the first day. And
Yeah.
I kind of expect that might happen with us too.
Well, we were, and the group was contacted by a Kansas City magazine about dahlias, about growing dahlias, whatever. And they actually came and interviewed myself and Mark. So we're kind of stars.
When does that come out?
Where, see?
April is the April Kansas City magazine, I think.
Okay.
Well, I got something, I always bring some things that's real, but not sometimes received well sometimes. I got into a website called Crazy for Dahlias. And I was looking for a Vicky, which is a big yellow tuber. And I got in there way back in January, and they didn't open up until sometime 1st of February or something. And I followed that silly website and spent a lot of time watching it. And I'm not so sure that guy had any doubts.
Interesting.
Because it's going to open in an hour, and then he took it off an hour. And it was a crazy thing. And he had some big, supposedly high-powered dahlias. And I'm not so sure he sold any dahlias because he was sold out. He opened it at 12:02, at 12:03 he was sold out. And I don't want that to ever happen to our group, to lose confidence that we've got real dahlias and we're selling real dahlias, and we may sell out, and we don't mean for that to happen.
Right.
And you know, you've got the web page, you know, the waiting list, but that can happen real easy. That left me a real sour taste in my mouth.
Yeah, it definitely does.
One thing I guess you know about this one, but have you a website called Dahlia Addict?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of guessing.
Yeah.
And he advertises for that Vicky, and he's been advertising all spring that he has Vicky, and then you go over there and look, and he's sold out.
Yeah. I mean, we had one order last year that was $500. So they banked some tubers. So this year I really think just popular. I don't know that that's going to happen. I don't think it's going to, but if it does, you know, I mean, there's a lot of demand sometimes, and it gets out on Facebook, and it is all just local pickup though. So we're not trying to get the world out there.
Some of the ones that I knew when the sale started, I was on right when they, launched it and put stuff in the cart, and still half of the stuff was gone before I paid for it.
I have a feeling that's gonna happen this year. Yeah. That's what I say. The first day the first couple of days where you have access, the public doesn't, buy them.
And hopefully all works.
It'll be great. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And Ron does too. And if you want to help Ron out, any of the growers out, whenever they're, taking their tubers down to the park, please let us know. We can always use volunteers, and you learn more by just hanging out with these guys.
Probably 2 years ago, I ended up with a diva from you. That's the one that's growing, 20 of them, and it's turned into one of my favorites. What a color diva is, dark purple. Yeah, it's a great one.
Okay. On our agenda, we had to take a break. There is a restroom down the hall.